Okay, this is Brent. Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com. And this is a common lawyer is seeking comments from someone else today. And we have with us the other elder in church. His name is Dan Scattum. We call him Montana Dan, and his wife Loretta. And I asked them if they would come on and talk about something that they're involved with right now, homeschooling. We're going to talk about homeschooling, the what, how, why, when, where, and who. And I can comment about it, I suppose. I was involved in homeschooling with all of our children. They're all grown now. But Dan and Loretta are doing it presently. Well, Dan and Loretta, thanks for being here, of course. And we know you're always willing. Yeah, you're welcome. And Dan has lived in Montana all of his life. Loretta has lived in Montana all of her life, except for 5 days.
She's not a native.
Yeah. Her father came there. She was born, and then as soon as her mother had the baby, they hightailed from Wisconsin to Montana to get work, because her father was a logger in Wisconsin, and then he went to logging in Montana, because in Montana they got a lot of trees.
Yep.
If you've been there. And still got a lot of trees. And they got more cattle probably than people. Is that true, Dan? Is there more cattle than people in Montana?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like in New Zealand, they say there are more sheep than people, and I think that's a true statistic. In the 2nd District of Maine, when I was running for Congress, that was the other district that was almost as large as ours. There are more moose than people. And same was the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, now that I think about it. But at any rate, you're out there now. You've been there all your lives. I won't ask how old you are. I know that you're old enough to retire, whatever that means, but you're not quitting working. Well, thank you for being with us. So who are you homeschooling?
We adopted our niece when she was 2 years old. We have 3 grown children. But Loretta's brother was killed. We were fortunate enough to be able to adopt her.
Uh-huh.
And we've had her for about over 10 years now. So
she's 12 now.
She's 12.
In 7th grade.
She's officially your daughter, and you'd raised. And by the time she got there, when she was 2 years old, did I hear right, or almost 2, right at it?
Just after.
Yes.
Your other children were raised?
Yes.
Okay, so they were raised and gone. Did you think about, wow, we don't know how we got our children raised? I'm sure you asked that question. How did we have enough to feed them? How did we have enough energy to keep things tolerably in order, right? Isn't that the way it works? Okay, then here you are, you're getting older. You're not the spring chickens you used to be, and you decide to adopt another little child. Doesn't that tax the energy level as you get older?
Well, maybe sometimes, but not really.
No, you feel like you're healthy and happy, and you got what you need to do the job. One thing for sure, I'm asking because I've not done what you've done. My children are raised and they're gone. I personally can't imagine myself having enough steam and discipline, given the energy level, to do what I needed to do. But maybe I would. Maybe God would infuse me with that kind of energy. Is that what happens?
Well, we used to, when we used to go visit our grandkids, and there's 8 of them now with our daughter.
Uh-huh.
They used to kind of wear us down, and we'd have to come home and rest.
Yeah.
Now not so much. So I think you're as young as you feel.
And having a young daughter has invigorated you. Is that it?
It seems to. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's positive news. So as we get older, we need to stay at it, active. Obviously, you quit moving, you're dead. But I'm sure that your daughter has kept you moving. Now you had before, I know you had a son, you had a daughter.
Two
You had
sons.
two
A
sons.
daughter is the oldest, and then 2 sons.
I see. And your daughter has 8.
She has 8 children with 1 coming.
One on the way.
And now, is she homeschooling her children?
She homeschools them, yes.
And how old's the oldest?
The oldest is 20, and he graduated last year, and 2 years ago maybe. And he's married now and on his own. So the rest of them she's still homeschooling.
So who started homeschooling first, you or your daughter?
Our daughter.
Did you know anything about it when you've talked to your daughter? Did you know anything about it? Did she kind of introduce you to the idea, or did you get introduced some other way?
She pretty much introduced us to the homeschooling.
And you hadn't thought of it that much?
I never thought I could do it. I wasn't the best student in school, and I didn't think I would qualify as a teacher.
Go ahead, Loretta.
Loretta drove school bus, and you see a lot of behavior from public school kids that is not very good. And so I don't know if we encouraged Katie to homeschool her, or if she just took it upon herself.
Okay, so you weren't against the idea at all. You knew about it a little, but when she did it, you were all for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you got to admire people that give it a try. Not all homeschool kids do real well, but I think if you put in the effort and have the right programs or the right desire, they say homeschool kids are way ahead of public school kids if things are taught right, or if they keep at them, keep doing proper education.
Well, is there as you're homeschooling, would it be right to characterize Loretta as the hands-on teacher more than you, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Is that the way it is with your daughter and your son-in-law, or your daughter and your son-in-law as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Dan, that being true, and that's the way it was when we were homeschooling our children too, because I was out trying to scratching like a chicken, trying to find money and food. So, Dan, how would you characterize your role in homeschooling? What do you contribute to the situation?
Just try to support, and once in a while I fill in a day or two here and there. But mostly it's up to Loretta. She does an excellent job.
What are you good at, Dan? Do you teach some particular thing you'd like to talk to your daughter about?
Well, I try to talk to her about country and stuff like that, and sometimes it's not real accepted yet, so I'll keep at it.
Well, so is it then maybe, Loretta, you going to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, he is good about taking her on the field trips. I don't always like going on those, and he does. So he does that a lot.
Do you go too, you say?
I do sometimes, but usually I stay back home and let him go.
Oh, okay. And let me ask this then, Dan. I'm trying to envision how it is with you and Loretta. I would characterize it just from what you told me, and we've never talked about this subject before, you and I, much. I don't remember talking about it. I've known you a long time. But I would characterize it that maybe, Dan, you would be the kind of the headmaster of the school that gets the bigger picture and says, okay, here's where I think we need to go. We need to teach these kinds of subjects. And Loretta is more detailed, and she actually teaches the algebra. How'd you do in algebra school, Dan, in school? Did you do pretty good in algebra?
Not so good. Let's change the subject there.
but you did learn how to read and write and do arithmetic. I take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I did too, and the other stuff.
I wished I would have paid attention in school, and I really think if I'd had a homeschool environment, hopefully I would have put it to use and been more willing to learn.
I
was too busy doing other stuff.
Oh, I was a teenager too, and a kid. Yeah, I went to school with a bunch of them too, and I know how they are. They're distracted easily. Well, let me ask you this, Dan. If I'm correct in saying you're a kind of a headmaster, and you say, well, I think this is the kind of subjects we ought to cover, which is more important to you both? Which do you stress more? Reading, writing, and arithmetic, or attitudes such as patriotism, love of country, love of God, who is God? The big questions, as Jesus Christ said, the weightier matters, he said to the Pharisees, of God's will, his law. Are you more concerned that your child can read and write and do arithmetic, or are you more concerned that your child is right-headed about who she is and who God is and where she lives in her country?
Well, I'll probably go down a different rabbit hole, but I think attitude and I guess attitude is much more important to work on than, all people make mistakes, but bad attitude is something that we not always good at, but we try to work on that the most, I guess. But it's important to learn the basics too. But I think that's foundational, and that goes back to what God wants us to do, I think, too. It's the new church, the new covenant. It's more to do with attitude and the heart issues than the outward stuff.
Well, what level of education formally do you have, Loretta?
I went through high school and 2.5 years of Bible college.
Where'd you go to Bible college? Now
Briarcrest in Canada.
Oh, is that in
Carinport? Yes, Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
Where the wind really blows, I take it.
Yeah, just about like home.
Yeah, like Montana.
Yeah.
So, Dan, you went to high school, I take it, and did you gain any highfalutin education anywhere?
I went to a little bit of local college here in Bozeman for a little while, and I went to a little bit of Bible school.
Where did you go to Bible school?
It was up by Lewistown, Montana. It's no longer there, but.
And well, you're not what I'd say college graduates. Now, I run into college. No, but you've had a taste of it. I've run into college graduates that will not homeschool their children because they don't believe they're qualified. I've run into graduate students, like you get a bachelor's degree, then they get a master's degree, and they still won't do it because they say, I just know I'm not qualified and I couldn't do it. What do you think about that, Dan?
Well, I think it has to be a personal choice, but with the environment in the public school, it's just it's something we just couldn't do. They've thrown God out of the school, God out of everywhere, and we'll all be held to some account for that as a country, and then as a personal choice, I think we have to do what we think is right, and you got to put God back in school. The early education in our country, they used the Bible as the textbook. And I think yesterday or a couple days ago you talked about what was that quote you said? Something about 2 dummies in a Bible, and then you can educate kids.
Yeah, and I told you the story about this Mexican couple that was in my Sunday school class when I was in Southern California, and he was 29 years old and he couldn't read or write. But they had a lot of money because they were skilled in what they did, both him and her. And they had clientele that had a lot of money. He was a high-end mechanic for racing boats, and she was a high-end hair cutter for movie stars. And I got to know him, and he learned how to read from her teaching him out of the Bible. They were married at age 4. She was 14 and he was 15. Of course, she was going to have a baby, so they went into court, and the judge said okay, and they'd been married ever since. Not without a lot of trouble, by the way. They've had rocky times. But I asked him, he had adopted up now 40 children, adopted, like you have adopted your daughter, and homeschooled all of them. 40, for crying out loud. That's hard to imagine. I mean, when they became Christian folk, Katie barred the door, boy, and they went after it. And I asked him, his name is Domingo, and his friends call him Ming. I always called him Ming. And her name was Irene, and we all called her Reenie. Ming and Reenie. I said, Ming, how do you do this? He said, all you need to homeschool children and do a really good job is 2 dummies and a Bible. That's all you need. And his children are educated, as I like to say, and they have proven themselves, as you had mentioned a while ago, Dan, to outstrip those out of the public system by far. He's always been connected to a church, and the churches he's been in, he's worked, but they've always supported him in what he does, because what he ended up, him and Reenie together, I don't say just him, ended up doing was wherever they went to church, their school became an important ministry in the church, an example and resources. But truly, the Bible was the center. So I come to you folk, Dan and Loretta, and you've got a daughter, and you're not elderly people, but you're not spring chickens anymore. You feel it, I'm sure, but you're happy, you're healthy. I feel it too, but I'm happy and healthy, tolerably so. Thank God in heaven, for now. But how much of a part does the Bible play in education, homeschooling of your daughter?
The biggest part.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing on this earth. Is having a relationship with the Lord, and that's one really nice thing about homeschooling is you can bring that in, and there's so many different curriculums that bring Bible into learning, and the one that we use it does that.
And what is it, by the way? What's the name of it?
I use Abeka.
Is that what your daughter had used as well, and so you learned about it?
She uses that some, but she also she has 8 kids, and they don't all learn the same, and so she uses a whole bunch of different curriculums. She's tried to get me to try some of the others, which are good, but this is the one that works for me, so I just stick with it. But yeah. But she has tried a lot of different ones, and some of her kids are pretty close in the same age, so they do some of the classes together. So
now, Loretta, I'm just guessing, but since she's got 8 and another one on the way, is it fair to say that all of her children are pretty close? Period. I mean, in age.
Yeah, pretty. They go from 20 down to 3. Every
2 or 3 years type thing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I get it. So she's running grades 1 through 8 right now, if you put it in those terms, all at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, so
preschool to 8.
Well,
preschool. Well, yeah. With homeschooling, tell me, with homeschooling, you really start as soon as they're born, don't you? They're learning. That's the way you look at it. Is that the way you look at it? I'm asking you. That's the way I looked at it.
Yeah, the little ones, like, even if you just give them a coloring paper to keep them busy while the other ones are doing their school, they feel like they're in school. So, yes, it works.
Well, I've got more to talk about. I'm going to end this segment, but I want to come back if you got a little more time and ask more questions. Folk that consider homeschooling and want to hear somebody else talk about it, young mothers. We had that experience when we were young, and your daughter had that experience. You had the experience, but you were a little bit older. But I've talked to a lot of people, maybe you have, and have said, I wish I'd have been homeschooled. I can say that. Yeah, I wish. And it isn't like my parents did something wrong. Things weren't as bad. That's true. I mean, my grade school teachers and the bus drivers were the local preachers in the country churches. That's who they hired because they needed the money, and people trusted them. And my teachers at school were part of our church, some of them, and the ones that weren't were part of my family. It was a different world. So I don't criticize my parents at all. And I got a Christian education at taxpayer expense. That's the way it worked back then. The teachers prayed with us, etc. Well, and they spanked us too, by the way, and pretty rough. And I'm not against that, but I'm sure they'd have went to the penitentiary today if they tried it. Well, this is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, and this is a segment that the other elder in church, Montana Dan, and his wife Loretta, a segment about homeschooling because they homeschool their daughter. They have one at home left. The other 3 are raised. And I want to ask them more questions on another clip about their experiences doing that and why they think it's important and why they chose to do it, etc. So we're going to end this session, and we'll see you on the next one.